Today we're going to talk about 3 extremely underrated and overlooked intelligence feats in the Naruto series, and I'm talking about insane intelligence feats. They're going to be things that characters do that you may not pay attention to and not think twice about, but when you take a deeper look into them, you're going to realize that the intellect required to do those things is actually insane. And no, obviously we're not going to come here and talk about Shikamaru or Madara or Kakashi, those extremely talented, smart characters, because much of what they do in the story revolves around their intellect. We're going to talk about some very niche things that are actually extremely impressive, and that may come from characters you're not expecting. And let's go from least insane to most insane feats, starting off with number 3. Sasori controlling 100 puppets simultaneously. When Sasori uses his 100 puppet army against Chiyo and Sakura, that looks extremely impressive, and you're just scared for Sakura and Chiyo about the size of the enemy army. They're gonna be overwhelmed. That's gonna be insane. How are the two Kunoichis gonna fight against Sasori when he uses that? And yeah, obviously everybody knows the jutsu is very powerful, but just think about this for a second. Sasori is controlling 100 puppets at the same time. He modified his puppet body so he can control more than 10 puppets, the limit number for his fingers. The 100 chakra threads come out of his chest and they can control all those puppets. Now, we don't know exactly if Sasori just sends like a generic mental command for most of his puppets and just says like fight or something, because that would make things much easier and it wouldn't make the feat as impressive, but by the nature of the puppet master jutsu, you are essentially controlling 100% of the puppet's actions. There is no autopilot per se. Just think about how the quality of a task you're doing drops once you start multitasking, and now multiply that by 100. He's essentially multitasking an army of puppets. And yes, technically the army of puppets is defeated because Chiyo uses the 10 most powerful puppets ever created, which were all designed by the original master puppet himself, and Sakura was also there to help her out, but still, controlling all those 100 puppets is insane. You can also say Chiyo's feat there of controlling 10 puppets at the same time was insane as well, because controlling 10 puppets at the same time would also be extremely difficult, and in that same realm of controlling several things at the same time, we also have Nagato controlling the paths of pain and Obito as well in the War Arc, but those are only 6. The number of controlled creatures can increase whenever the animal path uses their summons, but it never gets close to the 100 entities that Sasori controls with his 100 puppet army. The amount of concentration required for you to do that is monumental, and it's obviously a superhuman feat. No person would be able to control 100 things at the same time like Sasori does, but things are just gonna get crazier from here. The second feat I would like to talk about here is actually done by a very smart, genius character, which doesn't get that much credit for being extremely intelligent, but he definitely is, and that's gonna be Kabuto. Now you may ask, well, what is the feat? Is it the Edo Tensei Jutsu? Controlling all those undead ninjas? Well, not really, because most of the time during the War Arc, most Edo Tenseis are on autopilot, so it doesn't require that much work from Kabuto to control them at all. It's only a couple of times when he uses his full control over the Edo Tenseis, like at the end of the Nagato vs Naruto B and Itachi fight. Kabuto also has some interesting intelligence feats when it comes to his experiments. He was able to fuse DNA from many other ninjas onto himself in the War Arc. Kimimaru, Kidomaru, Suigetsu, Tayuya, he was using everybody, and you have to be very intelligent to conduct experiments like that, but that's more of the usual stuff, right? Orochimaru, Tobirama, those guys also did several experiments with new jutsus and things like that, so Kabuto here doesn't stand out. What actually stands out for Kabuto is what he does in his fight against Tsunade back in Naruto Part 1. A fight which was going very well for Kabuto, because Tsunade was nerfed due to her mental state in that point of the fight. Kabuto was able to press her with his own taijutsu, and to stop Kabuto, Tsunade used a jutsu on him that should have been a one-shot. She used the Body Pathway Derrangement, and this jutsu is exceptionally broken. It's so broken, Tsunade never uses it again, otherwise it would make her fights kinda boring. Well, and also she doesn't have a lot more fights after the Search for Tsunade arc anyway. And it's implied that you have to hit the back of the neck of your target for the jutsu to work. So there's that condition Tsunade has to do before the jutsu works, and I would imagine a jutsu like that wouldn't work on an undead Edo Tensei like Madara that she fights in the war arc. Regardless, if this jutsu lands, it should be an instant GG, because what it does is just so exceptionally broken it's kinda beyond me. The jutsu completely reroutes the nervous system's connections in the target's body, making it pretty much impossible for the target to move. So whenever you want to move your hand, for example, your foot would move instead. Every time you send a different signal for your body to move, a different part of your body would move instead, and it would just be completely chaotic. You wouldn't be able to do anything. Can you imagine that? Every part of your body not responding, and instead another does in its place. It would be a nightmare for you to deal with. But what Kabuto does next is absolutely insane, because he memorizes every single section of his body. When he tries to send a signal to his arm, for example, he notices, oh, my neck moved instead, so he memorizes all those different combinations, and he manages to move normally. Well, he said he's not 100%, but still, he's moving just fine with that nerf. Imagine all the minute movements you always have to do to move that you don't even think about. It's second nature. You don't have to analyze every micro detail of your movements when you're going around, or especially during a fight. You're just doing them, but now Kabuto has to think exactly about what he has to do. He has to be completely aware of every single mental command he's sending to his body so that he can move correctly, and he's doing that while fighting against Tsunade, one of the 3 legendary Sannin. So it's not like he is learning slowly, getting the hang of it. No, he does it in a couple of seconds, and right out of the gate, he is under a lot of pressure fighting against the future 5th Hokage. We don't know if this jutsu wears off quickly because Kabuto never mentions it again after he fights against Tsunade. Maybe him not being 100% is one of the reasons why Naruto was able to land his first Rasengan on Kabuto. But even if he wasn't 100% doing those things, it is still extremely impressive. Reminding yourself every time you're gonna move that you have to move another part of your body instead. Also, the weirdness of you doing that? Can you imagine having to move your neck to move your arm? How does that even work? But Kabuto figured it out really fast. And the level of concentration you have to maintain, not to do something wrong, not to move the right part of your body just by instinct, is definitely a superhuman feat. Moving on to the most absurd and underrated intelligence feat, and it comes from a character that is not exactly a genius in terms of intelligence by any means, Jiraiya. Now, the feat in question is his coded message that he leaves to Naruto after his fight against Pain, telling Naruto and the Leaf Village obviously that the real one is not among them, talking about Nagato not being among the Pain bodies. And there's several reasons as to why this is such an insane feat. You may think Jiraiya had a lot of time to figure that out, but no. He starts figuring out that the Pain bodies are just bodies and controlled by someone else from a distance when he was inside the belly of the toad after the animal path loses his headband and Jiraiya sees the scar that he himself left on that man a long time ago. But he has to go back out to confirm his theory, and he does. So he knew he was going to sacrifice himself to give that intel to the Leaf Village, but his intention was to tell Fukasaku about what he found out, and that's it. The Toad could unsummon himself, and the Leaf Village would get the information. However, before Jiraiya could say anything, he got his throat destroyed, and so he couldn't speak. That's why the need for a coded message emerged, and so Jiraiya had to think about the message very quickly before he got killed, and under extreme pressure, and not only pressure but also pain because he lost an arm, his throat got blown up, it was absolutely hurt, and he still managed to put out the message. And that's not even the insane part of Jiraiya's feat here, because sure, managing to create an encoded message under those circumstances is certainly impressive, but not something you wouldn't expect from a powerful and experienced ninja like Jiraiya. What's really impressive is the way Jiraiya coded the message. First, he had to think about a way for the Leaf Village and the Leaf Village alone to be able to decode the message. So he thought about using a character he wrote very similar to a number 9, knowing that only Naruto, because he read Jiraiya's books while they were traveling during the time skip, be able to figure it out. Only Naruto will be able to say, well, that's not a number 9, it's a character. And so Jiraiya would know that by Naruto identifying that character, they would know the message would regard the only book of Jiraiya that had that character in the title. And sure, that's kind of impressive, but no, it doesn't stop there. Because the way Jiraiya uses to create the message is just absolutely insane. He writes numbers, and each of those numbers correspond to a page of the book he signaled with a character before the beginning of the message. And those pages' first word was the word Jiraiya was using for the message, and he knew that would be kinda easy to figure out. Once the Leaf Village understood those numbers were referring to pages of that book. But the thing is, Jiraiya remembered the first word of several specific pages of his book. You need to have superhuman memory skills to do that. Like, do you remember the first word of any given page of the last book you read? And sure, Jiraiya wrote those books, but if you ask any author, they're not gonna know the first word of any page of any book they wrote. Unless it's like the beginning of a chapter. But usually, the first word of a page is gonna be random. And that's exactly how those words that Jiraiya chose were. They were the first words of the respective pages just by random chance. So there are two possibilities here. One, Jiraiya has an absolutely amazing memory that nobody could expect. Or two, Jiraiya actively memorized the first words of the pages of his books for a situation like this where he would have to leave an encrypted message. And yeah, that would make sense because Jiraiya is a famous ninja spy, and leaving encrypted messages would definitely fit the job description for Jiraiya in many situations. Also, the way the decoding team reacts to the message Jiraiya left doesn't seem like they are surprised at seeing a message like that, so is this common practice? I would imagine many ninjas would have ways to leave encrypted messages if they have to. So yeah, if Jiraiya practices memorizing words so that he can leave encrypted messages like this, the feat would definitely not be as intelligent because it wouldn't require impromptu raw recollection. Because yeah, if you give someone enough time, they are going to memorize the first words of the pages of books. Especially someone that needs to do that for something important like their job or sending a message. Then again, by the way Jiraiya leaves that message, with the initial character specifically left for Naruto, makes me think that was probably improvisation and therefore an extremely intelligent feat. Like, yes, maybe Jiraiya memorized the first words of every single page of every single one of his books, and if he needed to, he would have other tricks to inform which book he'd be referring to. But because he had to left the character for Naruto to find out, this also makes me think that no, Jiraiya didn't really have other means. This is the first thing he managed to think about. Otherwise, he would likely send a more generic, understood encryption that Leaf Village would be able to find out without Naruto if necessary. Obviously, it's interesting thematically speaking if Naruto is the one who helps to decipher the code, and that's great, but from an in-universe perspective, giving the Leaf Village the easiest possible encryption would be more preferable. Even though Jiraiya also may want to send that message to Naruto himself as a way to say goodbye, because he knows he's about to die anyways. But let me know what you think. Did Jiraiya memorize the first words of his pages beforehand, or did he do it through sheer mental power? Like this video if you enjoyed it, please subscribe if you haven't, ring notifications, those are very helpful and it takes 2 seconds. Click on the video showing up on your screen for more cool Naruto content like this, and thank you so much for watching.